Hello, friends. We have with us today a very special guest. I'm privileged to invite David Bridger, UNAIDS Country Director for India. David has also earlier worked as UNAIDS Country Director in Papua New Guinea and in Indonesia. Welcome, David.
Good morning and thank you. Welcome.
David, our governments have promised to end AIDS by 2030. So
Yeah.
where are we on the 95-95 service targets and the overall end AIDS goal in India?
Look, where we are in India and where we are in terms of that 95-95-95 cascade that you talk about is, from earlier this year, we were at 79-86-93. So, to translate that means, 79% of those people living with HIV actually understand their status. 86% of those are actually on life-saving treatment, and 93% of those on treatment have actually achieved viral suppression. But that's the big picture. And I think we really do have to remember the size and scale of India, not in terms of only geography, but also population. So 1.4 billion people living across 36 different states and union territories. And, when you look at those states, you have a very varied and different picture as well. So that's the average for India, but going down at state level, that progress is not even, it's actually uneven, and we have a number of issues in terms of achieving those goals across India as a whole, but also down at state level and district level.
Sorry. Can you share a positive impact story of UNAIDS in India in recent times, which gives us hope?
Yes, look, certainly I can, and I can share a couple actually.
Yes,
I mean,
sure.
I think, one of the really positive things over the last couple of years has been, the government of India also recognizes that it really needs to ramp up performance at state level. And so one of the things that we've been invited to do is to partner with the government and looking at some of the lower performing states and exploring ways in which we can really help to accelerate action at state level and improve that performance. So that's one really positive thing, I think, and we're moving together with community and government in terms of really supporting state level interventions. But again, I think, something that we've really been focusing on the last 18 months is really trying to rebuild some momentum around investing in young people. And I think, again, with India's population size, with India being, having the largest number of young people on the planet, we really need to be looking at young people if we're going to sustain the response and ensure that we have the energy and the new ideas to sustain that response to 2030 and beyond. So we've been doing some small interventions with a number of young people's groups, young positive groups who are really trying to work and help offer assistance and support to young people living with HIV, and working with our co-sponsors and our other partners to try and really mobilize that response in a stronger way.
Okay, but do you think that the rate of decline of new HIV infections is steep enough to achieve our goal by 2030? And has combination prevention taken a backseat? What with more of the younger people getting the infection?
Okay, look, let's have a look at the whole question around the rate of decline in new HIV infections. And I think, look, this is a big global success story. We have seen new infections declining over the last 10 years, and globally they have gone down by 38%. And that is a success story. It's not enough, but at least it's headed in the right direction. But again, when we come down from the global to the regional level, you start to see many variations. So we've seen some really strong success in Eastern and Southern Africa, where you've seen nearly 60% of new HIV infections decline over the last 10 years. But here in this region, in Asia and Pacific, we've only seen that decline by 14%. And in India, we've seen that decline by about 42%, which again is progress and really strong progress. But again, the national target for 2026 is 80%. So we're still well short of that target. Now, in terms of combination prevention, I don't know if you could say it's exactly taken a backseat, but I think there's definitely challenges. And we really do need to explore ways in which we can fully adopt and scale the full range of combination prevention interventions. And I think, one of the keys to that here in India is the adoption and scaling of PrEP. And that's, of course, pre-exposure prophylaxis. And I think we're still, way too slow, not only in this region, but here in India as well.
Coming back to the 95-95 targets, is the progress in general population on those goals similar to what we call the key populations? And how can we do better when it comes to leaving no one behind?
Yes, sure. Look, you raise a very good point. And of course, when you look at key populations across that cascade, they are lagging behind the overall population. I mean, you only have to look at indicators like the coverage of prevention interventions, which is absolutely critical. And, when you look at people who use and inject drugs, we've only got 46% coverage. If you look at people who inject and use drugs in terms of treatment uptake, that's also down a low around 54%. So key populations are lagging behind, and it's part of the challenge and the solution to ending AIDS here in India. We really do have to find and constantly reinvigorate, innovate, and find new and varied ways of reaching those who are currently not accessing treatment and prevention services.
What about long-term HIV care outcomes? Say after 3, 4, or 5 years of initiating the therapy in terms of viral load suppression and averting advanced HIV disease.
Look, yes, this is a big challenge as well. And of course, one of the outcomes of success of getting a large number of people onto treatment is that people are going to live longer. We've seen really substantial declines in the number of people dying from HIV here in India. So that's down by over 70% over the last 10 years. But of course, that means that people are living longer and they're aging as well. So I think if I looked at the last estimates, around 36% of people living with HIV here in India are now over the age of 50. So we are going to have to adapt and ensure that the health system is prepared to look after that group of people as they get older and are living with HIV, but need to also be adhering to their treatment.
Now coming to HIV and TB, people living with HIV, because still TB is one of the biggest killers for them.
Yes.
Are we screening people with HIV for TB properly? Is it just verbal screening, and is that enough? Or should we be testing all of them? What can be done better? Yes.
Look, on this whole area, and I know there's a whole battery of questions around TB and HIV here, but
yes,
it really is something that needs to be looked at a lot more holistically. We need to examine people and their risks collectively, and we really need to apply joint prevention efforts. I mean, we really do need to be looking how the HIV and the TB program can get out of their silos and work together, because there's a lot to learn from each program. There's a lot to learn from HIV for TB, and there's equally areas of overlap and learning that TB can offer HIV programming as well.
Yes, because somebody said that the TB HIV people are working together, but with their backs to each other. So we have to have
Yeah.
front faces to each other. Yes.
Look, unfortunately, that's the case in a number of countries. It's
Yes.
the cost of mounting emergency disease-focused campaigns. But look, we're at a time in the epidemic where both diseases need to be helping and working together. There's a constraint on resources, and we can be applying those resources across a range of diseases and getting the most out of those resources. It makes perfect economic sense, and it makes perfect public health sense as well.
Yes, yes, very right. Should we be advocating for combination prevention options in the context of reducing the TB risk amongst people living with HIV? For example, malnutrition, non-communicable diseases, alcohol, tobacco intake, because all this increases the risk for TB. So, what needs to be done more in this
Oh,
direction?
exactly. Again, just coming back to what I said, I mean, I think a holistic approach, looking at people-centered approaches to public health, we really do need to be looking across a wide range of those areas. It's also a way of overcoming some of the remaining stigma and discrimination that people face in regards to certain aspects of diseases as well. And so looking holistically allows a whole range of areas a whole range of risks to be addressed in a non-threatening way. Yeah.
Okay, coming to the multi-testing molecular test platforms, we
Yeah.
have them there, which can be used for tuberculosis, HIV, and other diseases, STIs, hepatitis, you name them and all. And one of our indigenous ones is the TrueNat machine, which has been approved by WHO as a point of care test, which can be deployed at the PHC level as well. So, shouldn't these machines be used for testing all conditions relevant to a specific population and just not remain disease specific? Like mostly they are used for diagnosing tuberculosis. They were used for in the case of COVID diagnosis also, but
Yes.
should not be using them more for and particularly HIV, hepatitis, one multi-disease platform.
No, I totally agree. Look, again, need to get out of the silos, need to apply innovation and technology that brings our approaches together, not apart. And we're seeing continually technology expanding and being able to cover a multiple number of different disease issues on one platform. So why not use technology and use it sensibly and effectively? So I totally agree, and it's something that we really do need to look into.
What does putting people first mean to you? That's the theme of AIDS 2024. What does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I mean,
Yes.
it really means to me that we need to be thinking about solutions from the perspective of people who are in the area that I work, from the perspective of people living with HIV. And it's a principle that especially UNAIDS has applied ever since its formation back in 1996. But again, I think, something that speaks to this is one of the global targets, which is the goals of reaching 30, 80, 60, which is really about, ensuring that the community are engaged and involved in the response. So ensuring that at least 30% of testing and treatment services are community-led. 80% of HIV prevention services are engaging with and involving the community, and 60% of the programs that are really looking at the enabling environment also involve and engage the community. So that principle is really powerfully there. There's still a long way to go, but that principle is at least enshrined and is a global goal.
Any countries doing better on this, involving communities, at least in the Asia region, which can be like a role model for others to follow?
Look, I think we've seen a number of countries in this region particularly stand out in that respect. I think you've seen a number of really sound community-based interventions in Thailand, and Thailand has a long tradition of engaging those at-risk communities in the response. We've seen that also in Cambodia. We've also seen that in countries like Vietnam, and more recently, we're seeing an enormous mounting of a response in the Philippines involving the community, where we're seeing new HIV infections escalate quite dramatically.
Okay, so they at least this gives hope to the other countries and to follow suit what they are doing.
Exactly.
Okay, just to end, your message for AIDS 2024 and any other closing remarks you would like to share.
Look, I think we are really in a very critical year this year, and even in next year, not just only globally, but here in India as well. I think we really are at a critical juncture in terms of the HIV response. I think we really do need to look at ways in which we can accelerate and broaden the response and not lose the great gains that we've made over the last 10 to 20 years. So it's a really critical time for the HIV response. And I think, we really do have to remember that the progress that we've made, we need to be proud of as well. I mean, I think we need to finish this on a positive note. We need to be proud of the progress that we've made. And I think it's a real demonstration that we can, achieve an enormous amount when we put together that recipe for success, which is, engaging decision makers, following the science, investing resources adequately, tackling inequalities, protecting human rights, and really bringing the community on that path with you and getting the community in some ways to lead the response.
I say amen to that. That may it. Yes. And many thanks, David, for finding time from your super busy schedule, we know that, to share such informative and thoughtful insights. Friends, we were listening to David Bridger, UNAIDS Country Director for India. Thank you. Thank you very much.